What's going on, folks? This is LB the Realist with Surrealistic Studio Surreal News, where the real is surreal. So there's been some drama in the news lately regarding current Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and the incoming Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen that was just picked by President-elect Joe Biden. Now, what's being said, and this is going to be the best way that I know how to explain the situation. I've done a few hours of research here, probably about 4 or 5 hours of reading articles, listening to different videos, gathering different sources and different commentaries from different people. And this is what I've come up with. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, in the media right now, it's being said that he's playing keep away, essentially, with about $450 billion of unallocated funds from the CARES Act. So just kind of bear with me as I gather my thoughts and try to present this in a salient and coherent fashion. So the Federal Reserve and the Treasury disagreed on whether or not to let their Federal Reserve liquidity reserves expire on December 31st. So these liquidity reserves are basically programs or facilities that the government has been using to help prop up the stock market, to help infuse money into our economy, to help the economy keep growing, or to keep it afloat rather, instead of crashing. Not only are these Federal Reserve liquidity reserves expiring, but also like the eviction moratorium is expiring next month, as well as extra federal money for the unemployment insurance is expiring as well. So the Treasury is saying that 9 out of 13 of these facilities, these financial facilities, should be closed. And the Federal Reserve is actually arguing that they should be extended because we're not, through with this pandemic yet, and we could really benefit from using this money, by giving it to the mainstream lending program and PPP and so on and so forth. But we've only used about 25 to 26 billion dollars of this allocated money, of this money that was allocated for these facilities. So now the Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury Secretary is asking for this money back. All of the money that we didn't use for these facilities, he's asking for the money back so that we can reallocate these funds for things such as extra unemployment insurance and stimulus checks, money for the people. Maybe helping some of these small and medium-sized businesses that were screwed by the so-called mainstream lending program that was supposed to give loans to these small and medium-sized businesses. But what actually happened was, when these businesses went to apply, they were met with, well, we want to focus on companies that have high cash flow and high growth. The only problem is that during this pandemic, the businesses that are being hurt the most don't have high cash flow and they don't have high growth because it's a pandemic. So they were denying about 95% of the applications for the mainstream lending program for these loans. And these banks were allowed to do this. Essentially, they can make their own rules, even though essentially it was supposed to be for small and medium-sized businesses, but they got screwed over. I'm sure you guys have heard of this in the news. So the Fed was arguing that they wanted to keep, these facilities going. The Treasury is saying, no, we need to close at least 9 out of 13 of these facilities. So the Fed agreed to ultimately close these facilities down. The Treasury is requesting $429 billion left over from the unused CARES Act money. Most of the unused funds went to support Federal Reserve emergency lending facilities, corporate debt, and municipal bonds. I have trouble with that word. But basically, these bonds are basically just loans that people would buy, and then they would basically, they would be like 4% loans. So they'd be super cheap loans that they could, loan out to people, and then we can help keep this economy going by these bonds. So the Democrats are saying that what Steve Mnuchin is doing is actually illegal, and that it's going to be reversed next year when Janet Yellen and Joe Biden officially take over. But a Treasury spokesperson is saying that it's actually legal under the CARES Act stimulus law that originally provided the funding, because under the CARES Act it said that these facilities would eventually expire on December 31st of 2020, And what they're saying is he can't take the money and put it in a different, I guess, fund. So what's happening is, since the Treasury is asking for $429 billion back, he's going to actually put that money into what is called a TGA. $429 billion is actually going into a Treasury General Account, or a TGA. And they're saying that he had the option to put this money into the Exchange Stabilization Fund, or the ESF, so that Janet Yellen, the new incoming Treasury Secretary, has easier access to these funds. So now that these funds are going to be in the TGA instead of the ESF, it's actually going to make it less accessible to her. So what she's going to need to do in order to access these funds in the TGA now is that she's going to have to get Congress's approval. So, and then there's also the question of legal interpretation as well. Like, can these funds actually be used, in the in the TGA if it's in the ESF, basically? So it's kind of confusing. How it was explained is that basically it really doesn't matter if it's in the TGA or the ESF. Either way it goes, the funds are still going to be accessible. So basically, the CARES Act had limitations for the deployment of unused funds beyond January 1st of 2021. So unused money by January 1st of 2026 must be put in the general account and used for deficit reduction. That was by 2026. So it does say that it's going to be put into the general account, but this is by 2026, and he's going to go ahead and do it now. So the CARES Act had a lot of shit in it. I'm sure you guys watch Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore likes to say that it was the biggest, transfer of wealth to the top the top wealthiest people ever in recorded history, because it was a $2 trillion deal, the CARES Act, but the $2 trillion could actually be, times 10, so they could put money into the money from the CARES Act could actually be multiplied times 10. So it wasn't the initial money, it was whatever the amount is times 10. That's just the way it kind of worked. So one of the things that they did for the wealthiest of Americans was something called the pass-through entities, which $115 billion went to 43,000 taxpayers making $1 million or more annually. That's averaging about $2.68 million for each of the 43,000 taxpayers. Imagine you being one of the 43,000 taxpayers. They got $2.68 million just from the passing of the CARES Act. It wasn't me, I'll tell you that. It was only people that were making over $1 million annually. Meanwhile, in the same bill, the poorest of the poorest Americans got a $1,200 check. So yes, we got a $1,200 check. Some of us were lucky enough to get unemployment benefits, and now that those benefits are running out, 43,000 taxpayers still have 2.68 million to play with each. You know what I'm saying? So that was just one of the ways that they screwed over the people. The mainstream lending program, how I mentioned in the beginning, the banks wouldn't lend to small businesses because they required that you would have high cash flow and high growth during a pandemic. So the only businesses that had high growth rate and high cash flow were the big businesses that were already thriving through this pandemic. So they're the ones that were capitalizing off this mainstream lending program. So there were some people actually saying that it's a good thing that we're actually getting rid of this mainstream lending program, because the small to medium-sized businesses weren't thriving. They weren't utilizing it anyways. Like I said, there was only about 25 to 26 billion dollars that was used for this, and all of the other money was just sitting in this account, not being used apparently. So Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, the current Treasury Secretary, is saying that now that the corporate and the municipal bond market is basically thriving again, the stock market is booming again, there's no need to have this money just sitting. So he's asking for the money back now, and he's saying that we can actually use this money, put it into the ESF, which is the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which actually has about, what he says, we actually have about $750 billion in that fund already. We could use that money in addition to the incoming money for extra, unemployment insurance, for help for small to medium sized businesses, for $1,200 checks for every citizen. We could reallocate these funds and put it to better use. So this is what Steve Mnuchin is saying. Federal Chair Jerome Powell is not happy about it, and Democrats are not happy about it because they say that we could use that money basically to keep giving to the biggest corporations because the banks aren't lending to small and medium-sized businesses. And they have these other liquidity facilities that they want to keep this money for. And let me just read a few of these liquidity facilities that they're referring to that are actually expiring on December 31st of 2020. It is the primary dealer credit facility, the money market mutual fund liquidity facility, the primary market corporate credit facility, the secondary market corporate credit facility, term asset-backed securities loan facilities, the Paycheck Protection Program liquidity facility, mainstream lending facility, and the municipal liquidity facility. So these are the ones that are expiring. Like I said before, Steve Mnuchin says that 9 out of 13 of these facilities should absolutely be closed, and these are the 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, actually, these are 8 of the 9 liquidity facilities that he's referring to that absolutely should be closed, and this money should be used elsewhere. So when you break it down like that, I mean, it absolutely makes sense that we have this large pool of money that's not being used that can be reallocated and used for different purposes, for stuff that we actually need. Instead of giving the wealthiest of wealthy people, these tax breaks and these write-offs and these big giveaways, we can actually use this money to help the people. It just doesn't make any sense that, they're arguing over pennies. And whenever poor people get, just a little bit more than, than what they were getting when they were working their jobs, is a huge problem. But 43,000 Americans that make over $1 million a year each get $2.68 billion each. It just makes no sense at all. It makes absolutely no sense at all. The mainstream lending program, which a lot of people are saying is just a giant, catastrophe, a giant waste of time, because they're not giving, these banks are not giving these loans to small and medium sized businesses. They're only giving them to the large businesses because essentially they're able to make their own rules. Now, this is information that I've obtained from this YouTuber named Meet Kevin, who I've mentioned here on his channel before, who actually applied for this loan because he is a millionaire and he was able to, get these things. He's able to talk to these people, and this is what they told him, is that basically they're only interested in giving people loans or giving businesses loans who have high growth and high cash flow. So most of the money is not being used. The people that got the money, or the businesses that got the loans, are the biggest businesses and corporations anyways. So we might as well take this leftover money and reallocate it. That's what I'm getting from this whole situation. So they're reporting in the news right now that, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, is making it harder for Janet Yellen, the incoming Treasury Secretary, to use these funds. So now that they're in the ESF rather than the TGA, or I'm sorry, now that they're in the TGA rather than the ESF, it's going to make it more hard for her to use these funds. She's going to have to go through Congress in order to use these funds for, I guess, for what they want to use them for at this moment, which is these liquidity facilities that Jerome Powell is actually referring to as well. So it's a lot of information. I know it's a mouthful. It's kind of confusing. I'm still really confused about everything that's going on, but I'm doing a lot of research. I'm taking a lot of notes, and this is what I've come up with so far, and this is how I'm understanding it. If you guys have more information on this subject, leave me your thoughts in the comment section below. Like this video, give me a thumbs up if you support. Share this video for somebody who might need to hear this, and also subscribe to my channel if you're not a subscriber. I know a lot of you just happen to click on my videos and you're not subscribed. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You don't have to hit the bell if you don't want to, but it always helps to hit the bell so when I do another video, so you get notified, because YouTube doesn't like to promote small YouTubers that much anymore, it seems like, and it's really hard getting on the algorithm so that more people are attracted to the show, You know, when you may not do a video every single day, or you're a small YouTuber who doesn't have 10,000, 20, 30, 4,000, whatever, thousand subscribers, you know. So everything and anything helps at this point. If you guys want to support the show, do click the links in the description below. You can get free stocks for Robinhood, free stocks for Webull. You can drive for Postmates. Basically, they're giving money out right now. So in these times, in these stressful COVID-related terrible times, 2020 we live in, it is an absolute imperative that you get your financial security, you know, afloat. It's imperative that you take control of your financial destiny today, because they're not going to give us any help that they don't have to. You know, any help that we don't absolutely fight for. Because at the end of the day, I say it all the time, the more money you have, the more money they want to give you. But the less money that you have, the less money the people want to give you. I don't know why the world works like that, but it just does. The more you have, the more you get. And the less you have, the less you get. So let's focus on acquiring more. Let's focus on not only acquiring assets and wealth, but acquiring a wealth of knowledge, and acquiring love and peace and light, this information that we pass and transfer to each other, so that we can grow and evolve past what we are currently. We all need to do this together, and we all can absolutely help each other. So with all that being said, folks, love, peace, and light. Remember, follow me on all social media, Instagram, Facebook. I got groups, I got pages, I got everything down in the description below. Leave me a nice comment, and until next time, folks, I'm out.